Nanavaptamavaptavyam Vart eva chakarmani. Na, not, may, mine, parta, osanaprita, asti, there is, kartavyam, prescribed duty, trishu, in the three, lokeshu, planetary systems, kinchana, any, na, nothing, anavaptam, wanted, avaptavyam, to be gained, varte, I am engaged, eva, certainly, cha, also, karmi, and prescribed duty. O son of Prita, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is described in the Vedic literatures as follows. Tam Ishvarnam Paramam Maheshvaram. Therefore no one is greater than him or equal to him. His potencies are multifarious, and thus his deeds are automatic. Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Sarigaurabhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Hare. There is no duty, there is no work. This old pattern was not old motivation, it wasn't sustainable. So I decided that I'm going to rest, and if I don't desire to ever serve Krishna again, then, well, I probably would, but distribute books particularly, if I'm not motivated to distribute books, I'm just not going to do it. I want to find some inner motivation coming from within. So I was really tired. So about 3 days went by, but then on the third day, fourth day, I just got up and started distributing again. Out of this is just more natural. And I tried to keep that natural flow. And then I did that for about a decade, every summer doing this concert tour. And then after about a decade of doing that, I got to a point where, I'm not saying I'm perfect or anything, but I got to a point where those old motivations kind of wore out, and I needed to find something deeper. And I started to ask the question, why am I doing this? Although I would still go out and distribute the books, and but I needed to have a higher reason to do it. In fact, I even asked myself, why do I bother to live? Why not go all the way to the depth of the issues? So I was just questioning, why even bother to live, let alone do anything? Why get up in the live, let alone do anything? Why get up in the morning? Why put food in the mouth? All this. And this went on for quite some time, for a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And I was just going deeper and deeper into it. Once it reached a pinnacle, this person with a t-shirt on kind of just stuck in front of my face, and where I was kind of forced to read the t-shirt and focus on the t-shirt. And on the t-shirt it said, "Live to love." And I thought, that's it. That's what I'm looking for. Live to love. This is a higher motivation for me. This is, rather than trying to win the book score, rah rah, yeah, I won, whatever. And, this kind of drive, it's now, how about live to love? That worked for me. It felt like this is where it's at. So, Krishna, now extrapolating greatly, Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, what the Chatur Shloki, Krishna's telling Brahma, whatever existed before the creation, before material nature, was all that was there was I, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and everything that you see now is I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when everything is annihilated again, all that will exist is I, the Personality of Godhead. So Krishna, everything's part of Krishna, and to think anything is separate from Krishna, know that, O Brahma, to be my illusory energy. So, and even that illusory energy is a part of Krishna. So, but the appearance that it is separate from Krishna is his illusory energy. So, and so my point being, the microcosm and the macro situation in Krishna is Krishna doesn't need anything. Although still, he does. And why does he do? Stated that something along the lines of, my heart is far from irreligious principles. He's like religious principles personified. We can see in the pastimes of Krishna and his incarnations, like Lord Ramachandra, within the Ramayana and Mahabharata, it's all about adhering to these higher duties of regulative principles so strictly. And his pure devotees, of course, Yudhisthira, and so forth and so on, Arjuna, all these amazing personalities that are like Krishna in that sense, that they are godly. Yasyasti, Bhaktir Bhagavati Kinchana, Suryer Gunashtatra Samasate Surhara Bhaktasya Kato Mahadguna Manotarnasti Davato Bihi. The demigods and their exalted qualities, such as knowledge, religion, and renunciation, become manifest in one who has attained unflinching devotion unto the personality of Godhead Vasudeva. One who is devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities, even if he is adept at the practice of mystic yoga, or involved with the faithful execution of taking care of one's family and relatives. He must be driven by the speculative mind, and therefore must be engaged in the external energy of the Lord. How can there be any qualities in such a person? So, I will extrapolate on that later about how devotees are godly. But first, making the point clear that Krishna, we see in Krishna's pastimes, as Krishna, he would go and play his Vaishya role very nicely. He'd go out and herd the cows, right? In fact, he was so loving to the cows that his mother wanted to make shoes for Krishna because, there's thorns out there and he's going barefoot. And so when Mother Yasoda made shoes for him, he says, I can't wear these because if I have to wear them, then if I put them on, then all the cows have to have shoes too. I'll put them on, but as long as you get shoes for all the cows. So we see Krishna's, fine-tuned in basic principles, religious principles, and completely selfless in that sense, loving, caring. And we see that he gets up in the morning and is in Dvaraka, and he meditates upon himself, right? Showing us this is what we do. We don't meditate on ourselves, we meditate on Krishna. And then he's giving so much charity of cows, playing the role of a grihastha so well, although he doesn't need to. Obviously he's above religious principles. But he's playing the role to play a good example. And then we see the ideal sannyasi, Lord Chaitanya, doing all these quite austere lifestyle. He even banished his dear devotee from his association, Chotaharidas, as an example, because if he wouldn't have done that, then, I mean, that must have hurt him greatly in a sense. You know, it's of course pastime, but you know, that must be a difficult thing to do, to banish your dear devotee. So otherwise, Sahajis would have taken advantage of that and think it was okay to do their things that they do, and so forth and so on. So we see Krishna's playing a role, example, in a meticulous, perfect way, so that we all will know what to do. In fact, everything here is like, everything that we see here, we can see in God in a sense. The way everything operates, and why should we do anything? Why not become godly in the sense of what way Krishna does, the supreme leader? And not that we can duplicate, you know, lifting Govardhan Hill with a pinky, but we can become godly in the sense of adopting an access, or reawakening our eternal qualities, our intrinsic qualities, which are where we're equal in quality with Krishna. So I would like to share that we see everybody follows, whether we admit it or not, we're influenced by our leaders. You know, Krishna being the supreme leader. So if you look at the way cultures view God and how they are, how they act. For example, they did a survey in America. How many people believe in eternal hell? That God damns people to eternal hell. It was over 50%. Over 50% of the people in America think that God puts people in eternal hell. The Christian belief is in America, but the Christian belief is just a sample of one amongst many. Is if you don't accept Jesus as your Savior, then God damns you at the time of your death, damns you to hell forever. Never, cannot be any redemption. Now imagine, imagine that. So as above, as below. We want to become godly. Then godly basically means, in that particular scenario, like what happens if you just go, you didn't really understand what was said. You didn't go to church, about Jesus so well, or didn't understand it, or maybe you did and you were just testing God, and then you go, oh my God, he's going to put me out. And then you could just say, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. No, you didn't do it in this life forever. No, I'm sorry, I'll do whatever you say. No. That's their version of God. So this version of God, to become godly, then would mean, in some sense, become a monster. And within this with this viewpoint, we see, matters of the heart being smashed, radical amounts of slaughterhouses, and without even a thought, a care, exist there, and so many other things, murder rates, and so many things. There's more abortions than live births in New York City. At least as of 10 years ago, I looked it up. And on and on and on. In fact, I was distributing books at Jones Beach. Did I already say this? No. And Jones Beach, it's a beach, people go play at the beach, like Jagannath. And, it's all these kids playing and everything, and this one plane flies over with a banner. You get those in India where they advertise? And it's written, the plane's pulling a banner where you can read it, and it's advertising. And it says, 9-week abortion, only $499. Call this number. Yeah, there's like tens of thousands of families just playing on the beach. Dad, what does that say? You know, I mean, really, hardcore stuff. That's America. So, in relation to, you know, how we know God, so it behooves us to give the world, so like everybody follows their leader. God is the ultimate leader. If God in their minds is a monster, then they're monsters. Does that make sense? You understand my point? I'm extrapolating quite a bit. Like if over 50% of people in America think that God damns people to eternal hell, that's quite a perspective of God. I mean, anybody that would do that is a monster, right? I mean, at least that's the way I see it. Anyway, so it behooves us to try to increase it for ourselves, our understanding of God, and then automatically we will become more godly by reading Prabhupada's books on a regular basis and sharing the knowledge. To share the knowledge, I mean, unfortunately, India is following this monster like nothing more than that. Atheistic, you know, who cares about, you know, so it's just economic development full speed ahead and people have to die, so be it. I mean, basically in the United States right now, I've been watching it because I don't know when I want to go back, but the schools are open, I got a chance to preach. But what they're doing is, Trump is saying, if you don't open, then you're not going to get money. So they're forcing it, and if they don't open, they have to close their schools for good. A lot of them, at least 50% will be bankrupt. So they're forcing it open on the cost of people's lives, because infections have gone crazy. It's over 60,000 yesterday in one day alone. And it's just going to increase rapidly with the schools opening. But economic development before caring about the individual is basically what is going on in a gross way. In fact, they've told all the Indians, all the foreign students, that sorry, you got to go. You know, so and unless you can get a school that's online. So they have to shift around, or they have to go back to India. Anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked, but the point being that we'll call it the monster program. The monster program is really not about you. It's not about the soul. It's not about the soul. It's not about God. And India is adopting this way. It's not the smartest way to go long term. It might look kind of good, temporarily, but if you look at it more closely, it's not even good temporarily. It's kind of like making tractors and then putting 100 people out of work. And then those 100 people out of work, you know, go to the city, and it just creates problems. It's a simple example. So, so the point being that we see Krishna is Atmarama, he's self-satisfied. And he's fully engaged in duties, although he doesn't have to do any duties. In fact, we don't have to perform devotional service to Krishna. We don't have to be here. You didn't have to be here at Bhagavad Gita class. It's optional. You're not forced. I mean, you might be forced to, probably going to be forced to leave your body at some point. And you're forced to eat, unless you want to leave your body sooner than later. You know, you're probably forced to sleep at our stage. So these are things. But you know, as far as your voluntary service, you know, it's voluntary. So Krishna is Atmarama, he's self-satisfied, yet he's engaged in full duties. So how do we become also self-satisfied? Is by being purely dependent on Krishna, which means engaging, you know, where we have Lord Chaitanya saying, my only desire is devotional service. That's it. Going for devotional service, and that's it. Not attached to the results of the service, what comes along with the service and sometimes doesn't, what's taken away from you or given to you, not attached, just attached to the service itself. That's how we become Atmarama. And I'd like to share a story. So you could ask yourself, how self-satisfied do I feel? And then you can then go, according to what I'm sharing, and it is a universal truth, axiomatic truth, that if one does perform one's devotional service, then one becomes satisfied. So we can ask ourselves, if I don't feel quite satisfied, not enough to where I'd like to be at, we could then say, well, was I on time for the morning program? Was I following the 64 regular principles well? Did I avoid the 10 offenses? Was I really hearing the holy name, every syllable when I was doing my japa? All the details, let alone the big stuff first. And then once we got the big stuff down, going into more and more details. Which leads to a little dialogue I had. Does anybody not know who Hanuman Prashak Swami Maharaj is? Hanuman Prashak Swami? You don't know? A wonderful devotee. Yeah. Okay. And at least he lives in America, or goes to South America, I think, too. And he's known to be very intelligent. So I had some personal time with him, and I asked him, I want to max out devotional service, rah, rah, rah. And, well, you have any suggestions? And his suggestions weren't, build 10 more Sancton vans and, distribute 100 times more books than you're doing now. That wasn't what he was saying, although that's a good idea too. But what he said was, he said, okay, there's a glass here. It's empty. Now I'm going to fill it up with rocks. And it's can't put another rock on there. And he says, is that full? And I said, yeah. And he looks at me funny and goes, gets a bunch of sand, pours it in there also. So you can't even put one more grain of sand, it'll roll off. Okay, now is it full? I'm like, yeah. I said, huh? So he grabs some water and then pours it on the water until not a drop will continue. So the point being that he made is you have your service, but within the taking care of the details of your service, making sure there's not any what do we call it, space, like your bhajan's condensed. There's a nice Purity, I think is the name of the song by, forgot the name of the person. It's a wonderful bhajan, and within it it talks about how to get to Krishna Prema, and you have to condense your bhajan. Condense it. And so, in other words, I remember my guru saying, time's not wasted in hours, it's wasted in seconds. In between, the Hari and the Krishna and your japa, how much room do we have for external, unnecessary thoughts, energy that's wasted, that could be transformed and applied into hearing more attentively the holy name and having that holy name reveal so many things. So condensing the bhajan, or taking, he basically, Anuram Swami Maharaj was saying, you don't maybe need to change anything, but just do what you're doing more attentively and with more devotion and so forth and so on, was the theme of what he was sharing. So I just wanted to share that also, that I found helpful. And one last thing regarding yesterday's class and question about correcting others and stuff. At least the way I've been trained in Iskcon leadership course that I took, they said, if you're the guru, if you have authorized to correct people, that's one thing. But if you're not, what was recommended if you do feel the need for that, what was shared from that course was you correct people. Even as a manager, let's say I'm got some new bhaktas in my van and they need to be corrected, and they said you should sandwich 2 positives with the correction. So in other words, you might say, let's say he leaves his socks on the deck, dirty socks on the deck every day, and I share, I really appreciate you being eager to go out and distribute books. It's very inspiring. But if you don't mind the socks, if you could just put those in the cabinet, place in your cabinet instead of on the deck, and anything, and I'm engaged in prescribed duties. So Krishna is doing so that others will follow his path. That's as described in the next verse, to guide them properly. And we see so many unlimited pastimes of Krishna there in doing just that, and always loving and giving. And I also brought up the idea that a leader, everybody subtly or grossly follows their leaders, and Krishna being the supreme leader, so our perception of Krishna affects how we act. Like if our perception of Krishna is off, our actions might not be so wonderful. So therefore it behooves us to take time to read Prabhupada's books, get to know Krishna better, and share the knowledge with others. People have incredible misconceptions of God. And that was a most effective way to clear up the problems within society. And that a byproduct of being like Krishna is one becomes self-satisfied, as Krishna is self-satisfied. One is not in need of anything other than service. That's it. And from that, thinking about how self-satisfied I am, even though I'm fully engaged, we can monitor with how well I'm doing. And we can always improve. In fact, that's Vaisheshwara at his temple. He has there's objectives, and then there's like a motto, like a phrase that you work with as a team. And his is always better service. It's a good motto, or whatever the right word is. Probably a better word than that. So always better service. So always we can improve. We can become more self-satisfied. It might not be the externals that is the problem. We have that tendency to say, oh, it's the weather, that's why I'm not self-satisfied. Oh, it's this Prabhu, my next door neighbor, that's why I'm not self-satisfied. Or it's the prasad, my goodness, that's why I'm not, of course the prasad here is great, my neighbors here are great, so I don't have any excuses, obviously, but we have this tendency to do like this. So the reason why I'm not self-satisfied is because I don't have Krishna prema yet, fully, not totally there. But if one is internal in their thinking, then one can always improve and make rapid progress to the goal. Any comments or questions? Come on now. Yeah. Is there a mic? Prabhuji up there? Prabhu? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. There you go. Hare.
Self-satisfied and the disability
Good question. What's the difference between being self-satisfied and being lazy? Well, lazy is from mode of ignorance, and when we're with laziness comes being neglectful, not on the ball, not keeping up with stuff, and it catches up with you. It catches up with you. It's not lasting. It might seem like self-satisfied, but it doesn't last, because all the neglectful things, they catch up with you, and then you usually get very angry or whatever else. Dissatisfaction definitely follows laziness. Maybe not immediately, but it follows. Yeah. Yeah. Like tamagun, yeah. Like in truth, as somewhere it said, there's only two really happy people: the complete, bum, and this completely unaware, the drunken, intoxicated person or whatever, and the fully realized soul. So everywhere in between, people in distress. So, but at some point, that bum, intoxicated character is, going to get out of his slumber and realize that he's suffering. As Prabhupada says, if one doesn't realize one's suffering, then one is insane. If one thinks I'm not suffering, then you're either a fully realized soul or you're insane. So as long as there's still ignorance there, one's going to experience suffering, because one is misidentifying the self with the body. There's still material body consciousness. We're not fully Krishna conscious yet, then there's going to be some material consciousness, some contamination is there. But if one has, you see this in the West a lot. A lot of people don't even know that they're suffering. They're completely insane. And these are like people in nut houses, but people walking around the street all the time. Yeah. Did you have a question? Yeah. Or a comment?
What is the reason the duties performed by the Lord? What is the reason behind this?
Could you repeat that? I'm so sorry. Could you repeat?
Means the reason, whatever the duties prescribed by the Lord, what is their reason? To give pleasure for the devotees or to teach the humankind? Means what is the reason behind the Lord performed by the duties?
What are the reasons behind why Krishna performs duties? Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned one of them, to give the devotees pleasure, right? Yeah. Bhaktavatsala, right? He's a lover of his devotees. If you have everything, like going back to my micro analogy, I don't know if you were here, where, not that I'm Krishna or anything, but I felt like, anyways, live to love, became my motto, my drive at some point. And, all the other motives, if you have everything, then you don't need anything, right? But Krishna likes loving exchanges, right? And if we look at the spiritual world, I don't think it's anything but that. Rasa, right? It's all about rasa, relationships. It's all about loving exchanges. That's all the spiritual world is. Krishna having a loving exchange with the jivas. And Krishna having loving exchanges, in a sense, well, I won't go into this because I don't fully understand it, but yeah, I won't go there. So, expansions of Krishna, expansions of Krishna he's having loving exchanges with, and it's just one big loving exchange. So, could you comment on this? You want to read it? Here, can you give the mic? She's sharing more because he's more senior and knows more than me. He's saving me.
The next two verses, he says, if I fail to engage in carefully perform prescribed duties, certainly all men would follow my path. And the next verse, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population. I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. That's the reason why he engages in prescribed duties.
Just if somebody is a brahmachari or whatever action, so he is doing something. Like this is some general principle there, like he has to come over and do these things. And after that, he has to do some service. So, if the authority is telling him that he do this service, like we were discussing, and that person is not satisfied with their service. So, like this advancement will be like on the part of the devotional service, the person will go ahead, or it will be like a hindrance.
I missed the last sentence though. I got the rest of it.
Like if authority is telling, like some service can, some ABC, and that person says, no, I don't want to do, or I cannot do this, whatever. So that person, advancement in devotional service, it will be like slow, it will get slow down.
Got it, a good question. Yeah, so the question is, these prescribed duties, let's just say you're a brahmachari serving here, let's say, or anywhere, let's say anywhere, serving anywhere, and the authorities, temple president, whoever, temple commander, gives, duties for the person to perform, but the devotees performing the duties might not be happy with those duties, or might want to do something different or in a different way. And then the question being, does that, if you were to voice that, would that slow down his progress? So there's a lot of factors involved with this. As a general rule of thumb, best just to serve. I'm in the mood of service. How may I serve you? As a general rule of thumb. But for example, I was asked by the authorities to wash the pots and to cut vegetables. Okay. If you wash, it softens the hands. Then you cut and you make nice bloody vegetables. So, hey, I'm sorry, I can't use that knife. I'll scrape. What are they? Peel. I'll peel. I'm sorry, I just can't. If you want me here doing service, because I washed the pots, I didn't know about gloves back then. Now I have gloves, but I have to peel only and not use the knife because I got all these cuts, and if I'm not, you don't want to have bloody vegetables. So no, this is simply a request that I'm making. It's more like almost a demand. Well, it's actually not a demand. It's just saying, if you want me here, I can't use the knife because I can't make. You don't want me to have. You don't want to have bloody vegetables, right? So that's okay. It's perfectly fine. Now, if they were to say sorry, and if anybody's going to act like crazy, like no, we like bloody vegetables. Sorry, you can't peel. This is peeling and cutting. A cutter can become, a peeler can become a cutter, and then I just become a peeler, and everything's solved. But if somebody's going to act crazy, which people are sometimes a little out there, you can then person, and go, this is really wild, but why not adjust? I mean, I can't do this service because, that's perfectly fine, and that's their responsibility to deal with such things. So, it's not like we're robots. Prabhupada said surrender, but never surrender your intelligence. Like, for example, there's been some really crazy things on a rare occasion. Rare. And bad things have happened because of that. But here's a simple example. Prabhupada gave an instruction to a disciple, and the disciple fell down, and he came back and he told Prabhupada, I knew I was going to fall down doing what you asked me to do. And Prabhupada said, well, why didn't you tell me? Right? So here's a sample of where Prabhupada is saying, please share, if you have an issue with this, strong issue. Not that we have an issue with everything, we always get what we want, not do what, in unsubmissive service, not at all. The mood is, inquire submissively and render service. This is how we make the advancement. And I'd say, certainly as a general rule of thumb, the leaders in our movement are wonderful at engaging other people nicely in Krishna consciousness. But you might have some weird stuff on a rare occasion. So why not consult with your guru? Why not consult with higher authority? Why not, that's okay when you think something's kind of serious here, I mean, both needs to take place, right? But we're definitely not robots. But we want to think, what's in my highest interest to make rapid advancement? And what is that modus operandi to make more rapid advancement, which includes helping the world make rapid advancement. Helping the world make rapid advancement. In other words, I might say, whatever pleases Prabhupada the most is how you're going to make the most rapid advancement. So our authorities might ask us to do the needful, which you don't like. Which you don't like. I was in my more immature stages in Krishna consciousness, around some other people that weren't so mature, we made some complaints. Just privately within us. And one Prabhupada disciple picked up on it. And he said, my service was simply this. When the World War II, they hit beaches, and German pillbox was there, mowing down everybody that would hit the beaches. Waves and waves of soldiers coming in, all dying. Eventually, after thousands mowed down, a grenade got into the pillbox and blew up the pillbox. So this one Prabhupada disciple who kind of heard some of this said, my service was simply hitting that beach, getting shot, and making sure I fell on a barbed wire fence so that devotees behind me could walk over me more easily to get over the fence, to eventually put the grenade in the pillbox. He says that was his function. So is that what he would ideally like to do? The general made that call, and the troops went out, and eventually they took over the beach, and so forth and so on. So I'm gonna get wet getting the beach. I might get shot. I don't know. We have to just do the needful. At the same time, if we think that the call is a little crazy, which has happened in wartime before, and but don't, have you ever heard the phrase crying wolf? crying wolf means you cry when there's not a big deal going on. You make an issue when there's really not that much a big deal. And then and you do that a few times, then when there's a real issue, nobody listens to you. So be careful. I don't know if that was okay to your satisfaction, Prabhu, but that's a tough thing to answer. But as a general rule of thumb, being around a couple decades or more, I think our leaders are doing a great job. But at the same time, I mean, there's room for think tanks, and there's room for people to question, and there's room for all that to improve, for the sake of improvement, not for the sake of rebelliousness, just for the sake of lording it over. But for the sake of improvement, I think of keeping things productive and not trying to lord it over. But be very careful, do it respectfully. Yeah. But there's many, I was just speaking with one guru recently who talks about self-entrepreneurial devotional life. Like, do your own thing and have at it, like that. So there's room for all kinds of stuff. Krishna's all accommodating. Somebody's an entrepreneurial type, fine. Somebody's just like just tell me what to do type, fine. Somebody's a super ambitious type, go for it. Somebody's, there's room for, Krishna's all accommodating. Shouldn't be any. At the same time, Prabhupada did give us a structure. So, I'll leave it at that. You have a question? Oh, okay. Is that okay? But we have to do it respectfully and not rock the boat too much to where, cause more of a problem than a good thing. But just do it, if you're with the right motive, Krishna hears that, he appreciates it, you're trying to help. But not to make a bigger mess, more of a mess than a help. Because that can often happen if we're not mature about it. Alright. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Mo.
Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jai Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna